It started with a sound no one could explain. A deep vibration rolled through the skies of Montana. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't an explosion. It was something else. Something that made every living creature stop. Birds froze mid-flight. Dogs whined and hid. People stepped outside, holding their breath. The sky looked wrong. A strange red light spread across the clouds like blood in water. At the center of it, something black moved. Slowly, silently. A ship larger than anything seen before came through the clouds. It didn't make a sound. It didn't flash lights or send signals. It just floated down, steady and dark, like it had all the time in the world. Children pointed. Adults stared. Phones came out. Live streams went viral in seconds. But no one understood what they were seeing. It wasn't a plane. It wasn't a balloon. It wasn't human. The ship stopped above an empty plateau outside the small town of Arrow Lake, Montana. It hovered there, unmoving, watching, waiting. Within 30 minutes, U.S. jets circled the area. Drones were launched. The president was rushed to a secure location. Scientists were pulled out of bed and flown to Montana. The world turned its eyes to the sky. Inside the White House Situation Room, silence fell as the first images came through. The ship was pitch black, shaped like a long, twisting spiral. It reflected no sunlight. It cast no shadow. It looked more like a hole in the sky than a machine. And then it did. Nothing. No message. No movement. No energy readings. Just silence. By the second hour, civilians were evacuated from nearby towns. Arrow Lake became a ghost city. Military trucks poured in. Scientists set up labs and cameras. Every attempt to scan or contact the ship failed. A group of 5 drones flew straight toward it. They vanished mid-air. No explosion, no signal loss, just gone, like they were erased. That's when people began to panic. News channels screamed invasion. Some called it first contact. Others said it was the end of days. Protesters and believers gathered at state borders. The internet drowned in theories, alien gods, secret weapons, time travelers. But no one had answers. That night, the president authorized a no-fly zone. The United Nations held an emergency meeting. The ship still hadn't moved, but fear moved fast. A small team of elite soldiers was sent to investigate. Their goal, get close enough to see what the ship was made of. 5 of them drove in under heavy surveillance, fully armed, cameras on. They entered the red zone, a mile-wide circle of strange energy surrounding the ship. They never came out. All 5 video feeds went black at the same time. The last sound was a soldier whispering, "Something's in the light." Then silence. The red zone shimmered, almost like it was breathing. Some said it was alive. Across the world, people watched the footage. Some cried. Some cheered. Some prayed. And then, at exactly 2:47 a.m., the ship moved, only slightly. Just a tilt, barely a few degrees. But it was enough. It wasn't stuck. It wasn't broken. It was waiting. Back at the research tent, Dr. Eliza Moore stared at her screen. She had studied alien life signals for 20 years and never seen anything like this. "This isn't just a ship," she whispered. "It's a message." Colonel Briggs, the military commander on site, turned sharply. "What do you mean?" Dr. Moore pulled up a live thermal image. The ship was cold, far colder than the air around it. But now a soft heat pulse flickered on one side. Not random, not mechanical. "It's like a heartbeat," she said. "Slow, steady, alive." Briggs frowned. "We sent people in. It took them. What kind of living thing does that?" Dr. Moore stared out at the silent black shape. "One that's not here to talk." Suddenly, alarms blared. A second object had appeared. This one smaller, falling fast from orbit. It was heading straight toward Earth. "Impact in 90 seconds. A tech shouted. Everyone held their breath. But instead of crashing, the object stopped mid-air, just above the red zone. It floated for a moment, then slowly descended beside the black ship. It was a pod. A door opened. Steam hissed out, and from inside, something stepped onto Earth. It looked human, tall, pale, hairless, dressed in black with glowing veins of light across its arms. Its eyes were all white, no pupils. It raised one hand, palm open. Every soldier raised their weapon. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, hand out, waiting. The president, watching from Washington, ordered no engagement. We wait. We see. The figure turned its head toward the cameras. Then slowly, it pointed to the sky and said one word. Others. Within seconds, satellites picked up dozens, no hundreds of signals moving toward Earth from deep space. Moore's voice shook. It wasn't alone. The figure lowered its hand and vanished, literally blinked out of sight. The smaller pod retracted into the ship, and the black spiral began to glow, dimly, like an engine charging up. Then came the final twist. From inside the research base, the deaf boy who had been evacuated earlier suddenly screamed. It was the first time he had ever made a sound in his life. He grabbed a pen and paper and drew a spiral with his eyes closed. Around it, he wrote symbols that no one could understand, but that matched cave markings found in ancient ruins across the world. The boy opened his eyes and said in a flat, clear voice, "We are not the first, and we are not ready." He collapsed. Quiet fear settled over the camp, because everyone realized something terrifying. The ship didn't come to attack. It came to judge. The world held its breath. After the black ship came down over Montana and the word "others" echoed through the skies, everything changed. Governments went quiet. Military bases moved into high alert. News channels ran non-stop footage of the ship. But the strange, spiral-shaped object still hovered silently over the red zone. It didn't attack. It didn't speak. It just waited. The red zone was 1 mile wide, and anything that entered it disappeared. 5 drones had vanished, then 5 elite soldiers. They stepped past the invisible line and were gone. No screams, no signals, just silence. That's when people stopped calling it a ship. Some started calling it a gate. Others called it a judge. But it was the boy who changed everything. His name was Eli Navarro, just 10 years old, born deaf. He lived in a small home near the edge of Arrow Lake. The night the ship arrived, he fell into a strange sleep. His eyes fluttered. His hands twitched. And when he woke, something inside him was different. He screamed. For the first time in his life, Eli made a sound. Doctors couldn't explain it. They ran tests, brain scans, blood tests, hearing checks. Everything looked normal, but Eli was drawing nonstop. Strange symbols filled page after page, spirals, lights, a shape like the ship, and around it, dots like stars. He never looked at the paper while drawing. His eyes were always closed. One of the symbols he drew matched ancient carvings found in South America. Another matched symbols from caves in India. Eli had never seen those places, never read about them. But he was drawing them perfectly. Dr. Eliza Moore, a language expert from the Defense Science Division, studied his sketches. "These aren't random," she said. "They're not art. They're a pattern, a message." Colonel Briggs didn't believe it. "You're telling me a 10-year-old is talking to the ship?" "I think the ship is talking to him," Dr. Moore replied. The president was briefed. For the first time, someone asked the question no one dared speak out loud. Is this boy humanity's translator? While the world argued, the ship moved again. At 3 a.m., it released a pulse. It wasn't light. It wasn't sound. It was something deeper, felt in the bones. Phones, TVs, and radios everywhere buzzed for exactly 10 seconds. No voices, no message. Just that strange vibration, like something inside the earth had hummed. Then it stopped. But something else began. That night, people across the world had the same dream. A red sky, a spiral of black light. A voice without words that filled them with fear, sadness, and something even worse. Hope. It was later called the dream pulse. Some cried when they woke up. Others felt sick, Some felt strong, but the most terrifying part, every person who had the dream drew the same spiral the next day. Eli didn't draw that morning. He stood perfectly still in his hospital room, staring out the window at the sky. And then he said, clear and slow, "The door is opening." Before anyone could ask what he meant, alarms rang across the base. Something was falling from the sky. It wasn't a meteor. It wasn't a ship. It was a cube, black, sharp, covered in blue lights. It hovered just outside the red zone and landed gently on the ground. The air around it shimmered. Soldiers aimed their weapons. No movement. Then Eli walked out of the hospital tent, barefoot. Everyone tried to stop him. Guards shouted. Dr. Moore ran after him. But Eli kept walking, calm, focused. When he reached the cube, it opened like a flower. Inside was a glowing core, spinning slowly. It pulsed in sync with the ship in the sky. Eli smiled, then stepped inside. The cube closed. Everyone froze. Dr. Moore screamed his name. Soldiers surrounded it. But the cube didn't move. It didn't disappear. It just glowed. And then a voice filled the air. "One has entered. The first door is open." The voice wasn't human. It didn't come from speakers. It was everywhere, like the wind itself was speaking. Then silence returned. The cube faded into light and was gone. Eli had vanished. The world exploded in fear and awe. Some called him chosen. Others said he had been taken. But no one could explain how or why. Back at the research base, Dr. Moore studied his last drawing. It showed 4 cubes, and only one was open. Below it, Eli had written a single word in shaky English, trial. The message was clear. This wasn't a war. It was a test, and humanity had just begun its first challenge. The world had questions. Where was the boy? What was the cube? And what did the voice mean by "the first door is open"? In Washington, the president met with world leaders in a secret summit. Some demanded weapons. Others asked for peace talks. But no one had answers. The alien ship remained still in the sky, like a dark eye watching Earth. And then, 3 days later, a second cube appeared. It arrived not in the United States, but in rural Kenya. It landed in silence, outside a small village. People gathered, whispering in fear. No one approached. But this time, the cube opened on its own. A bright symbol floated in the air. It looked like a tree with a spiral trunk. A message followed, not in words, but in images. People from all over the world saw the same vision, a field of stars, a burning planet, a figure standing alone beneath a dark sky, then a choice. Back in Montana, the original ship finally moved, only slightly, like a shift of weight. But the tremor it caused was felt for hundreds of miles. Birds fled the sky. Earthquakes triggered minor landslides. And inside every command center on Earth, one alert appeared at the same time. Event detected, dimensional shift, Sector 1. Scientists scrambled to explain it. "We're not just dealing with space," said Dr. Moore, still at the Montana base. "They're using dimensions we don't understand." Colonel Briggs frowned. "So they're not here in our world?" "They're in it," she said. "But they're also above it." Later that evening, another message appeared on every screen in the world. Trial initiated. Then it showed Eli. He stood in a room made of light. The floor was transparent. Stars drifted beneath his feet. Around him, floating objects spun slowly. Some looked like puzzles, others like machines. His eyes were glowing faint blue. He was calm, focused. The voice returned, cold, alien, but clear. "The subject has entered the gate. Trial 1, judgment of empathy. Outcome will affect sector status." People everywhere watched, confused. What kind of trial was this? Then Eli reached out. One of the floating objects moved toward him. It flickered, shifted shape. It showed him 2 images, a burning house and a crying child. Then it asked in symbols, "Save or survive?" Eli's hand hovered. He pressed save. The object turned gold and vanished. Another appeared. An old woman holding food and a soldier holding a weapon. Again, who eats? Eli hesitated, then pointed to the woman. The puzzle lit up and vanished. One by one, he faced these impossible choices. Each time he chose kindness. Each time a golden light filled the chamber. Back in Montana, the ship pulsed. Blue waves rippled across the sky. The red zone shimmered. Then, just before midnight, something unbelievable happened. Eli returned. The cube reappeared at the base. It opened. Eli stepped out. He was unharmed, but he was different. His eyes glowed faintly. His voice was clear. His presence felt older. He looked at Dr. Moore and said one word, "Past." Colonel Briggs stared in disbelief. Past what? Eli turned to the sky. The first trial. Empathy. Then he handed Dr. Moore a new drawing. It showed Earth surrounded by 5 rings. One of them was now glowing blue. Dr. Moore whispered, "So, there are more?" Eli nodded. 4 more, each harder, each deeper. "What happens if we fail one?" someone asked. Eli didn't answer. He just looked up, and in the sky above the stars were no longer still. Something else was coming. The world had changed, and it wasn't finished changing. Eli Navarro, just 10 years old, had passed the first alien trial. Empathy. He had returned from the glowing cube alive, but different. His eyes now carried a quiet depth. He spoke slowly, carefully, like someone who had seen far beyond what others could understand. The president gave orders: protect the boy at all costs. The Pentagon moved him to a secure facility beneath the Colorado Rockies. But Eli didn't seem scared. He kept drawing. He drew stars and rings. He drew more cubes. But this time something new appeared in his sketches. Eyes, hundreds of them, all shapes, all sizes, floating above cities, watching. Hidden in clouds, shadows, corners. Dr. Eliza Moore asked him, "What are these?" Eli answered in a whisper. "They're here now, watching us." That same day, 3 satellites around Earth went dark. No damage, no crash, just gone. Space. Agencies found nothing. Just empty signals, as if something invisible had erased them. Then came the message. It didn't appear on screens this time. It appeared in people's minds. A wave of shared thought passed through humanity. People paused in the street. Pilots froze midair. Children wept in their sleep. And all across the world, people heard a single word without sound. Observe. Back. At the Montana site, the original black ship shimmered again. It hadn't moved in days. But now, it sent a beam of light straight into the sky. It reached into orbit, higher than any Earth satellite. Within seconds, something answered. A shape appeared in space. It was not like the first ship. This one had no form. It flickered like it was half real. Some said it looked like a jellyfish made of lightning. Others saw nothing at all, just a distortion, like the sky itself had bruised. The world's top scientists called it the Veil Entity. Eli looked at it once and refused to look again. "That one doesn't test," he said. "That one watches the ones who do." People across the planet began reporting strange events. Shadows that moved the wrong way. Glimpses of figures in mirrors that weren't there. Voices whispering in languages no one spoke. And then quietly, another cube appeared. This time it landed in Moscow. The Russian government sealed off the area immediately. No media, no footage. But 2 days later, an encrypted message leaked to world leaders. Trial 2 has begun. It is not like the first. No one knew what that meant. The Russians said nothing more. But that night, Eli drew something terrifying. A face, not alien, human. A man screaming, his eyes full of rage. Behind him stood a wall of burning flags. Beneath the picture, Eli had written just one word: division. Doctor. Moore studied the sketch in silence. "The next trial, it's not about kindness, is it?" Eli shook his head. "It's about trust, and they'll try to break it." Within a week, the world fractured. Nations accused each other of hiding alien contact. Internet networks went down in parts of Europe. Propaganda spread like wildfire, and in one small town in Turkey, a family vanished after claiming they'd spoken to a man of light who offered them a choice: join him or stay behind. The signs were everywhere. This time the aliens weren't just testing a boy, they were testing everyone. One night, while watching Eli sleep, Dr. Moore saw something strange. A spiral of glowing light appeared in the room. It hovered over Eli for just a few seconds, silent, gentle, and then vanished through the wall. The next morning, Eli spoke clearly. They're counting. Every choice we make, every lie, every truth. They want to know who we are beneath the surface. She asked, and what happens if they don't like what they see? Eli's face turned pale. He whispered, then they won't open the last door, and that's the one that saves us. The gate beneath the alien ship was alive. It wasn't made of metal or light. It was made of thought, shifting shapes, colors, memories. It pulsed with a strange hum that people could feel in their bones. Eli and the six stood before it, their eyes wide. This was no trial cube. This was something older, something sacred. The president held a meeting with top scientists and generals. They asked questions no one could answer. What happens if we step through it? Will it attack? Is it a trap? Eli already knew. It's not a weapon, it's a doorway. To where? Dr. Moore asked. To them. That night, a storm gathered over Montana. Lightning twisted unnaturally, crackling around the ship. Rain fell upward. Animals fled. Even machines refused to work near the gate. Then, without warning, the gate opened, not with sound, with silence. Everything went still. The wind stopped. The clouds froze. Even the stars above blinked out for a second. And from inside the gate, something stepped out. It wasn't human. It wasn't alien. It was something in between. Tall, slender, covered in shimmering armor that flowed like water. Its face had no eyes, just a single glowing circle in the center of its forehead. It didn't walk. It glided. People watching around the world held their breath. It stopped in front of the six, and it spoke. Not with words, but with pure thought that echoed in every mind on earth. You have passed the first two trials, but you are not ready for the third. Eli stepped forward. Then teach us. The being turned its head slowly. I am not your teacher. I am the gatekeeper. Why? Are you here? To show you what happens if you fail. It raised one hand. The air shimmered. A vision filled the sky. A shared dream shone to the entire world at once. Everyone saw cities burning, oceans rising, machines hunting humans in the ruins, and above it all, the black ship turning away, sealing the gate forever. And then, silence. The vision vanished. People screamed. Others dropped to their knees. Some denied what they saw, but everyone felt it deep inside. A warning. Eli's voice was steady. What is the third trial? The gatekeeper turned its gaze to him. Survival, but not of the body, of your soul. It stretched out its hand, and from it appeared a new symbol, a twisted double helix, like DNA wrapped in fire. There is something buried deep in your kind, a spark or a flaw. The trial will find it. Dr. Moore stepped forward. What does that mean? The gatekeeper tilted its head. You will face what you fear most, yourselves. With that, it raised both hands. The gate behind it widened. A massive platform appeared, floating in the sky. New structure began to build itself, piece by piece, like it was remembering how it was made. Black towers, glowing veins, silver bridges that folded like wings. It was a city, a test ground, not of machines, but of humanity's true nature. The gatekeeper turned to the six. Only one of you can enter the third trial. The others must guide from outside. The children looked at each other. Eli knew he had to go, not because he was the strongest, but because he had already seen what the world could become. He stepped forward. I'll go. The gatekeeper placed a hand on Eli's chest. A burst of light filled the air. Then enter. Face your reflection. The gate pulled him in like a breath, and he was gone. Back at the base, alarms blared. Satellites picked up something strange. A second ship had arrived, far beyond the moon. No heat signature, no response. It hovered silently, waiting, watching. Dr. Moore whispered, "This isn't just about trials anymore. Something else is coming." Colonel Briggs stared at the screen. "We need to be ready." But no one was ready, because deep inside, the third trial, Eli opened his eyes and found himself face to face with himself. Eli Navarro opened his eyes. The world around him was silent, too silent. No wind, no sound, no color. Everything was gray. Gray skies, gray ground, gray air. He stood in the middle of a city, but it wasn't any city on Earth. It looked like a reflection of Earth, a broken copy. Streets floated in the air, buildings curved in impossible ways, lights blinked without a source. It felt like a dream, but it was not. This was the third trial. The gatekeeper had said, "You will face your reflection." Eli walked forward. Every step echoed. He passed a store window. Something moved behind the glass. He looked closer. It was himself, but not quite. The reflection stared back, but it didn't copy his movements. It smiled, and its eyes were cold. Eli backed away. The reflection stepped through the glass and walked into the street. "You came here to prove humanity can be saved," it said in a voice that sounded just like Eli's. "Let's see what that really means." Suddenly, the city changed. Screams echoed from alleyways. He saw people running, but they weren't real. They were memories, wars, riots, families turning on each other, betrayals, lies, greed. The other Eli walked beside him. "This is your kind. This is your truth. You hide your worst parts, but we see it." Eli felt pain in his chest, but he kept walking. Then he heard something else. Laughter. A child giving food to a stranger. A group of people holding hands after a storm. A teacher standing between bullies and a student. Eli whispered, "We are not just one thing." The mirror, Eli paused. "Then prove." It on the city shifted again. This time Eli stood in front of a tall tower. A door opened. He stepped inside. Inside, every room showed a choice. In one, a man could steal medicine to save his son, but at the cost of another child's life. In another, a leader had to choose between lying for peace or telling the truth and causing war. In another, a woman forgave the man who killed her brother. Eli saw it all. Tears fell from his eyes. "These are not just tests," he said. "They're real." The mirror, Eli nodded. "Yes, these are the real trials. Not chosen by us, but by you. Your kind creates its own tests every day." Suddenly, the tower shook. A dark storm formed above the city. Lightning hit the ground. The mirror, Eli's face twisted. His voice became deeper. "You think love is enough? That trust can win against fear? You're wrong. You're young. Your species is young." But Eli didn't move. He stood still, heart pounding, but strong. "We're not perfect, but we learn. We grow, and we're not alone anymore." At those words, the tower exploded in light. The darkness vanished, and the mirror, Eli, began to fade. But before he disappeared, he smiled. Not cold this time, almost proud. "Then go. Tell them what you saw. The trial is not over. It's only beginning." Eli woke up outside the gate. The gatekeeper stood over him. "You passed, but others are failing." "What do you mean?" "Not everyone chooses unity. Not every planet survives the final measure." "What's the final measure?" The gatekeeper raised its hand. A third ship appeared above Earth. It was not like the others. It was black, red, and full of edges, built for war, and it was awake. They are the ones who come when a world is judged unworthy. Back on Earth, sirens rang. Satellites picked up energy readings rising fast. All nations went on full alert. Colonel Briggs shouted, "Is this an invasion?" Eli looked at the sky, eyes full of sorrow. "No, it's the last question." Will we destroy ourselves or protect each other? The final trial had begun, and this time it wasn't a test. The third ship blocked the sun. It hovered in space just beyond Earth's reach, but everyone could feel it. The air was heavier, the skies dimmed, birds stopped singing, and the oceans began to shift, pulled by invisible forces. Every screen on Earth flickered with the same image, a countdown. Hours. Nobody knew what would happen when it reached zero. Would the ship attack? Would the trial end? Would Earth be erased? In Colorado, Eli stood with the six. Around them, scientists, soldiers, and world leaders argued. Loud, scared, desperate. We should launch missiles. No, we have to negotiate. What do they want? What do we give them? Eli stayed quiet. Then he heard it. A sound, deep and distant, like a heartbeat. But it wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside the Earth. He looked at the gatekeeper standing silent near the platform. Tell us the truth, Eli demanded. What is the countdown? The gatekeeper's voice filled the air like thunder and wind. It is not our countdown. It is yours. Confused, Dr. Moore asked, Ours? What does that mean? The trial was never about passing or failing. It was about revealing what you already are. The gatekeeper turned toward the third ship. That ship holds no weapons. It only reflects what your world chooses. Colonel Briggs frowned. Then what are we choosing? Eli answered. Each other. Across the world, screens began to show strange messages, short symbols, like code, but with emotion inside them. Some people could understand them, artists, children, poets. They didn't read like commands. They read like questions. Do you still believe in each other? Will you hurt to protect? Do you rise together or fall alone? It was the final signal, and it was everywhere. In Tokyo, a father gave his only food to a stranger. In Nigeria, 2 enemy tribes called a truce. In Brazil, gang members stood guard to protect children fleeing floods. Across the planet, something shifted, not just in governments, in hearts. Eli raised his voice to the world, broadcast live to every nation. This is not a war. This is a mirror. What they want to see is if we will finally act like we belong here. The countdown reached E001 with 1 minute left. Tensions climbed again. Nuclear submarines waited for orders. Satellites locked on the ship. But no missiles fired. No leaders pressed buttons. Instead, in every major city, people stepped forward. They stood in public squares. They held signs. They sang songs in different languages. They held hands. And then something no one expected happened. The ship sent a signal back. A beam of white light shone down, and in it stood a human, or at least something shaped like one. But it wasn't from Earth. The being was tall and thin, with shimmering silver skin and gentle glowing eyes. It had no mouth, but it spoke in every language at once. You have chosen. The light spread across the sky, forming words in the air. Trial complete. Result. Hope. The third ship changed, its sharp edges folded in. Its red lights turned blue. It drifted peacefully into orbit and slowly dissolved into light, becoming part of the stars. The gatekeeper turned to Eli. Few worlds reach this point. Even fewer survive it. Your species is incomplete, but it chooses love. It chooses to try. That is enough. Dr. Moore stepped forward. Is it over? The gatekeeper shook its head. It has just begun. From the sky, a fourth object appeared, not a ship, a station, a city, a gift. It floated above Earth and opened. Its arms, not a weapon, not a trial, but an invitation. Eli smiled, tears in his eyes. Welcome to the stars. The ship was gone. The sky was calm, but above Earth now hovered something impossible. A ring-shaped structure wider than any city. It shimmered with soft light, spinning slowly. Not metal, not stone. Something alive. They called it the Ark. No one knew who built it, not even the gatekeeper. But it was left behind by the ones who had passed before, those who had made it, who had been tested, who had changed. The message was simple. Step forward, or remain. Eli stood on the platform as a soft beam of light reached down from the ark. It didn't pull, it invited, but not everyone was ready. The world was split. Some saw salvation, others saw danger. Religious leaders debated if it was divine. Scientists warned about unknown effects. Military forces remained on high alert, though no threat had appeared in days. This could be another test, warned Colonel Briggs. A trap. Or a chance, said Dr. Moore, to grow beyond what we are. Eli had changed, not physically, but something inside him had awakened. He could feel the ark, not just its presence, but its intention. It wanted no war, no control. It was offering a path, a way to reach who humans could become. Not superhuman, true human. But the path was not easy. It would mean giving up fear. It would mean tearing down walls built by generations, borders, lies, hate. The final trial, Eli said quietly, was never about aliens. It was about us. Then the ark spoke, not in sound, in dreams. That night, everyone on Earth dreamed the same dream. They saw their world rising into the sky. They saw children building cities in the stars. They saw Earth not as a planet, but as a beginning. And they saw themselves changed, stronger, kinder, wiser, but not forced, chosen. The next morning, one by one, people began stepping into the light. Not soldiers, not politicians. People. A mother and her son. A blind poet. A boy with nothing in his hands but hope. Each one was lifted gently, weightlessly, into the sky. And when they entered the ark, they did not disappear. They transformed, not into aliens, into versions of themselves free from fear. It's not about power, Dr. Moore realized. It's about potential. The gatekeeper stood beside Eli. You have done what few worlds have dared. You faced your darkness, and you chose the light. Is it over? Eli asked. Not over. Beginning. What will happen to the people who don't go? The gatekeeper turned its glowing face toward the earth. They remain. They watch. They grow. In time, they may choose again. Eli stepped forward. The light of the ark touched him. He looked back at the six, his friends, his family. Some would stay, some would go, but they were all part of the story now. He smiled and rose. From every corner of Earth, eyes lifted. They know. Longer looked up in fear, but in wonder and in hope. Because the final test was not a question. It was a door, and humanity had finally chosen to walk through it. The ark was quiet now. Its light still glowed softly in the sky above Earth, like a second moon. But the beams of light had stopped. No one else was being called. For now, across the planet, the world slowly returned to motion. But everything had changed. Some people had gone, not many. Just a few hundred from across every nation. They were not the rich, not the famous, not chosen by governments. They were chosen by something deeper. Some were old, some were children. All were dreamers, builders, healers. Those who chose unity over fear, and those who stayed behind. They had questions. Why them? Why not me? What happens next? But the ark gave no answers. Only silence and time. Eli Navarro stood at the edge of a mountain, the ark glowing high above him. He was one of the last to return from it. He had changed, not in body, but in presence. His eyes held galaxies. His words felt lighter than air, but his feet still touched the ground. He had chosen to come back, to tell the story. He appeared on every screen, every channel, every language, and he said just one thing. We were tested, not to prove we're strong, but to see if we can love beyond fear. We chose to try. That was enough. All around the earth, people began planting seeds, not just in soil, but in hearts. Old enemies called each other. Leaders sat down, not to argue, but to listen. Soldiers built bridges instead of bunkers. It didn't happen all at once, and not everyone. Changed, but something had begun. A new era, an age where humanity was no longer alone, where the stars were not silent, where other minds watched, not as conquerors, but as neighbors. Somewhere out there, beyond the dark, other arcs waited. Other species had passed their trials. Others had failed. But Earth had earned its place, not as a perfect world, but as one worth saving. A child looked up at the ark. "Will we go there someday?" she asked her mother. Her mother smiled. "One day," she said, "when we're ready again." The child thought for a moment, then ran to draw in the dirt. She drew a ring in the sky, a home above the clouds, and beside it, she drew people, holding hands. Eli watched as the sun began to rise over the earth. Behind him, carved into stone, was the message they had chosen to leave for whoever came next. We are human. We are many. We are flawed, but we choose love. And that is our answer to the stars. The ark pulsed once like a heartbeat and waited, because this was not the end. It was just the beginning of Starbound.